Today we have one of my favorite humans on planet Earth, Rich Lennon. He is a wealth of knowledge. He's done real estate investing, anything you can think of, and been very successful. He also does lending now, and he talks about how do you make that shift from wherever you are now, either in real estate or outside, to having a seat at the table as a lender. So even if you're active, you could do it. If you're passive, you could do it. If you're not in real estate, how do you get to that side? It's such a conversation that I think is needed, because if you don't know this side of the real estate world or whatever business that you're doing now, I want you to have this piece, and Rich gives it step by step and helps you get to that side, becoming a lender and how that world works. Enjoy the episode. I have been looking forward to this. If you are listening to this right now, this is going to be one of my favorite episodes because we're interviewing one of my favorite people on planet Earth. I've got Rich Lennon here. So, Rich, thanks for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks, David. Thanks for having me, man. It's good to see you. It's been a little bit. It's really good to see you.
Oh, man. So if you are listening to this, I have to be very clear. Like, Rich is one of the people. If you're listening to this right now, you wouldn't be listening to this if it weren't for Rich Lennon. Like, he was one of the people that helped me springboard into Simple CFO, the Profit First world. Like, Rich is huge props, a huge person in my life that helped me in a very crucial time of my life as well, too. So, Rich, I want to publicly thank you for that as well on this podcast.
Man, you always say that. It's just not true, man. Nothing was going to hold. You didn't need anything. You were going to go out there and crush it just like you are now. And, it was a great journey. And, we certainly spent some time together, and,
I appreciate that, but you supported me too. It could have gone many different ways with people, because if you don't know this, if you're listening to this podcast, this very special episode, then I was actually working for Rich in his real estate company. And that's where I came to him after, working with him for, I think it was like 18 months or like 15 months, maybe at that point, and said, I've got this idea. Those famous words. And Rich is like, tell me about this idea. And he supported me the whole way. And not everyone would do that in that situation. So that's why I'm extremely grateful for that. Because yes, I probably would have still taken the dive, but it was nice to have, because, okay, here's the other kicker. Rich was my first client. He believed in me so much that he became my very first client back then of Simple CFO. And so he will always have that moniker of first client of Simple CFO, which I'm super excited that we got to work together even in that capacity. It was a good time. And where we found each other was on a networking cruise of real estate investors. So if you're listening to this, go to the Investor Addicts Facebook page. Like, I can't recommend that enough. You get stuck on a cruise ship with investors and lenders and people that make deal makers, and you never know who's there and who's going to be a connection for you, but who also could turn into a lifelong friend as well too. So, Rich, I want to talk about what you're doing today though, because you've done so many cool things, and we have been through so many things together, from the Podio days and setting up CRMs to doing real estate together. And yeah, we've done so much stuff, but you're in the lending world now today. But not only that, you've hit financial freedom in your life. So I want you to talk about, tell your story now and what you're able to do. And let's get into the lending world, because I've loved your journey and getting a glimpse of what you've done.
Well, I appreciate that, David. And, before you tap me, too hard on the head there, let's not forget that, you're the one who found like $800,000 in my books. And you're like, oh, look, the money's right over there. And I was like, oh, wow, that's super helpful. And, so, really, it actually was around that time where finding that money in my business really started to give me some of that freedom. And, that really culminated in 2020 when COVID came down. And I had a bunch of employees, and you know how it was. And I just, boom, we're shutting it down. We're just going to every quarter, we're going to make it smaller and smaller. And, the wife and I just kind of did a calculation, and I was, telling you about this a little bit earlier. And, the wife and I did a calculation. We're like, hey, we don't actually have to work anymore. And so what do you do next? And I just fell in love with lending and traveling, right? So I lend my money out, do a couple hours of work on the front end, do a couple hours of work on the back end. And, I earn 30 to 50% return on my money. I lend a fair amount of money. I've done a couple hundred of these deals, and man, it is the best, and it's really allowed me to I was telling you, I just got back from South Africa. I was there for a couple of weeks with friends. We were just hanging out, and then I'm off to Argentina in boy, it's only 2 months now. Now that I think about it, and we're gonna be down there for 2 weeks. And so, yeah, Lennon's allowed me to do that. It's been really, really great.
And you've gone from like operator, working in the business, doing the flips, doing that type of stuff to now being in the lending world. Like, I know you said it was a lot of when you got that cash, but is that, had you always wanted to be a lender? And like, were you lending before? Or was it like, ooh, I've got some cash, let me go and do the lending now? Or like, I just wondered how you got into that side. And like, you leaned into it hard. You leaned into it hard, which is awesome because now you're helping a bunch of people that need the money, in the area that that you used to work in a lot.
Yeah, I had been lending almost since the beginning of when I was an operator and going out and doing lots of flips and buying rentals. I was a buy and hold
Yeah.
guy who did a lot of flips to kind of pay the bills, rent to build the wealth. And did that for a long time. But I was also building up my IRAs. That cruise that we were
Mm.
on
Yep.
was an IRA cruise, and I started with smaller dollar amounts, and I had to work my way up. And so, but really, when I had okay, now I'm 6, 7, 8 years down in the future. Now that becomes more of a nest egg, and um, I just started doing that to an extreme and like doing more and more. And then, I really started thinking about like, how do I get a greater return, you know? And so I just started fractionalizing those notes. And, the old school guys call that a wrap. There were some guys that were doing wraps a long time ago with small dollars, not big dollars. I had a different problem. I had to move slightly different, higher volume dollar amounts. I had to move it. So I wasn't interested in moving $5,000 a time. So yeah, so I started doing that, and I realized it was just like the easiest job ever. In that I always understood that being the bank was always the best seat at the table. Like the
Yeah.
mortgage gets paid off, that's good. We get right after the taxes, right? Those
Yeah.
taxes.
Right.
Yeah, but after that, you're the one that gets paid, right? Before the investor, before everybody else.
So it sounds like, because you said it's the easiest thing, you would say this is easier than when you've had short-term rentals, flips, long-term rentals. Like you like the lending seat better, and it's easier than those
It's
seats.
it's so it's so for the best seat. And here's why.
Yeah.
Is the risk that you take as the lender is, in my opinion, the smallest amount of risk. And when I was buying homes, I'd buy them in a classic value of 70% minus ARV. And as you know, we were doing marketing to get those numbers. Like we had to do
Right.
marketing for people to call. And so we weren't like the margin wasn't really that 30% because you're spending it on marketing. So and it's a whole job to go out and do the marketing and find those deals. But as the lender, someone else underwrites the deal at 70%. And then I ask for 10% more. And so now I'm getting the deal at 60% that if I ever have to take it back, it was easier than what I was getting before with the flip or whatever. Like now someone else is doing the marketing. Now someone else is getting it under contract. Now someone else is like going to the closing, someone else is doing all that stuff. And I had a better position than they did. And so they would do the work and then I would get my return. And that's what makes it so easy. You got
Mm.
to do it right. You got to learn a couple things. You could wire $100,000 and then not get to the correct place. That's a problem. Right. But
Yes.
it's also very systematic where you're like, okay, you got to do these checkbox things. And if you do those checkbox things, you're going to be good. People buy millions of homes every year and record a mortgage. It's not like it's rocket science. It still has to be done correctly, though.
Yeah. Which is interesting because you in the lending seat, I love how you frame that. I don't know if I've even thought of that before, but especially if you've been in real estate and you have the experience of flipping or wholesaling or doing something active with that property, your worst case scenario is you get the property at a better rate than what the other people are getting it. Like at the 60 or 50% on the dollar, whatever it is of what you're lending, which it helps to have those skills. So who do you recommend become a lender then? People in real estate, people outside of real estate, like, does it matter? Like,
I certainly think entrepreneurs who have created capital, lending is a great spot to be.
yeah,
You have to learn a couple of things. Like you have to learn to underwrite a deal, and there are a couple of things that you need to do. But what I see now, like, is I call it the Capital One effect. Like I'm in Richmond, Virginia, and there's a bunch of executives over there at Capital One that make money, and they put side, and they are lenders in my own market. Like so, I see them right. They're just hey, I'm a dentist, I'm a lawyer, I've created some money. Now I want to move it. I want to imagine my life of, okay, if I have this $100,000 and I make 50% return on my $100,000, what does it look like in 5 years? And then, okay, now they start to see retirement. And so I see that there's a group of people that actively do that.
Yeah. So what you're doing, does it seem like that the people that would go down this road, they need to have the capital from their business, or do you like working with people that have some of the smaller, like for the traditional wrap that we learned of like the 5,000, or like where would you say a good benchmark is to start for what what you're doing specifically with a fractional wrap or frac wrap?
He froze up on me a little bit. I don't know what the question was. I got to get the question again.
Okay. Yeah, I hate Riverside sometimes because it like freezes out there. But that's where I was wondering if what's the dollar amount to start out? Like, is it 5K, 10K? Like, if you're doing a fractional wrap or like the things that you're doing, do you need more capital? Is it a 25K floor or 50K floor? Like, I'm just wondering
Yeah, I do
where's
think
a good
that
starting
to
point?
really make stuff like this work and be beneficial, you probably need at least $50,000 to begin to move the money. Um, it's a different skill set to do it with with money that's below $50,000,
Okay.
right? So, this is more for, okay, I've built up some level of success, and now I want to say, okay, how do I put that money to work for you?
Okay. I like that. So,
I don't like the ones, and I'll tell you why. And
yeah,
this might not be popular opinion, but I'll tell you why. I don't like the models where the the boots on the ground, the investor,
yeah,
the meat. I don't like it when they don't have skin in the game. It's the same thing I don't like when the person I'm lending the money to, the flipper, I don't like it when they don't have skin in the game. And
right.
and the flipper needs to be in a first loss position when it comes to me and them. And so I do think if I'm the deal maker that puts it together, because in a fractional wrap, you combine your money with someone else's money,
Mm.
and then you lend it and you receive arbitrage off the interest. And I think you have to have enough skin in the game that you could lose the money, and then you'll be a good steward. Because I find the people who make mistakes are the ones that are not at risk.
Hmm. No, that's really good. So you want them
You're going
to
to
have,
lose your
yeah,
money. Yes, yeah. And so if I'm going to teach someone how to do it, they need to have skin in the game with their ultimate clients. Because and I'll just tell you what the fractional wrap is. And
yeah, please
so
do.
my average loan is my average loan is $200,000. It's a couple pennies less, but let's just say it's $200,000, and the property is worth $300,000. Right, so that's just a standard flip. They got it under contract, and they're going to be able to do the whole thing for 200 and sell it for 300. That's 66%, but we're going to keep the math easy.
Yeah.
And so I will, you know, the way almost all hard money loans are at 20%. They're going to either use that number with points, they'll use it with origination fees, they'll use it with lawyer fees or whatever, but it's going to be about 20% to borrow the money. So I'm going to lend it to the flipper at 20%. Okay? And now I have to come up with $200,000. I'm going to bring $100,000 of my own money. And then I'm going to go to $100,000 from my private money lenders that I've been borrowing from for a long time. Someone who wants a double digit turn of like 10%. And they're going to give me their money at 10%. So my $100,000 earns 20% on its own. And then I get the arbitrage of the other 10%. So now I'm earning 30% return on my $100,000 that I have invested in the deal. And the reason I'm able to get another thing that I do that I think is key to success is when I go to my underlying lender, I do think it's really important that I'm at risk before them. And so what I do is I take a first position loss. Like I lose $100,000 before you lose any money, right? So now I'm in a first position loss. We share the note. It's only one note, one deed of trust. So they're effectively at like a 30 to 35% loan to value, earning a double digit return. And so like that money is very much available.
Hmm. Yeah. No
And I
kidding. When
just make
structured like that.
30%. And if in the same deal, if I put only $50,000 into my own money and I put $150,000 for my friend at 10%, then my return goes up almost to 50%.
Right.
And the less I put in the deal, the higher the return, right? So
Yeah.
if you have $100,000 to invest, you only have to do 2 deals a year, earning 50% return on your money. If you can find those pieces to the puzzle. You got to find a private money lender.
Wow. And
A
that's
lot
what
of
you're
people
teaching.
have friends that will
What
invest at a double-digit return at 30%, right? If you don't have it, you can learn to speak about it and you'll find that type of money. It's readily available. And
that's what
so,
you're teaching.
yeah, well, I teach them how to do the wrap.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't focus on
That's a
necessarily how
key
to find
piece.
private. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily focus on the private money piece of it. I've raised a lot of private money. A lot of the people that I teach up, we teach them how to go get private money. But that's not what we really focus on. We focus on how do we really do that fractionalized wrap? How do we find our client? Like who's going to be our client? How do we find our attorney? How do we make sure our paperwork is correct? How do we make sure we're doing the underwriting correct? So we really focus on that piece of it.
All right, I have to pause the episode real quick. If you're a real estate investor who's tired of wondering where your money is going or why you're closing deals but still feeling broke, you need to talk to Simple CFO. Simple CFO is Profit First certified and fully endorsed by Mike McAlowitz, the creator of Profit First himself. Our team specializes in helping real estate investors finally get control of their cash flow so you keep more money, you pay yourself consistently, and build a business that doesn't run on chaos. We'll help you implement the Profit First system the right way, set up the financial processes you've been missing, and give you a dedicated fractional CFO who actually understands investing and keeping track of your numbers on flips, wholesales, rentals, private lending, all of it. So if you want predictable profit instead of living deal to deal, head over to simplecfo.com and book your financial clarity call today. That's simplecfo.com. Stop living in confusion and start keeping the money you work so hard to earn. Now, back to the episode. Okay. I love this. This is so cool. Let's go then down the road. You had told us what a fractional wrap is, and you told us where you're getting the returns, and you're telling, like how it all works, and then you're teaching the actual wrap portion. So then from there, how many deals a year are you thinking that you only need to do 2 at 100K to get the 50%? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, you paused on me there again, but I think you asked me about how many deals that can you do or like the purpose of the deals.
Yeah.
And so like
Purpose.
think
Yeah.
that the more yeah, it's like the more it depends on how hard you want to work, and that's the honest answer. And a combination of how hard do you want to work and how much money do you want to move. And so if you want to do twice as many deals, you can take your return from 30% to 50%. Not a big deal if you're doing 4 deals a year. It's a
Yeah.
big deal if you're doing 50 deals a year, right? Because now you have to go in and now I'm only in at 25%. So the bigger the money gets, the lazier you get. I'll just speak from experience. You're kind of wanting to travel and you want to do other things. So then the bigger the money gets, the okay, I'm not going to work as hard,
Yeah.
right? So if you have a large chunk of money, you're not going to earn as high a return unless you want to work that hard. But early on in your career, with anything under a couple $100,000, you should be able to move at 50%.
At what point then does it become a business? Like, would you not want to scale it too hard? Because, like you, I feel like are more on the, I want to just do what I can do versus creating this massive empire of like, okay, now I've got people and staff and all this stuff and becoming like a hard money company. So, like, would you say that this could be a business that someone, if they wanted to go and take it, they could run hard with it? If they did want to work super hard and this was all they did?
It could certainly be a business. And for me, it really has become a business.
Yeah.
And, we've grown to be one of the largest hard money lenders in our city.
Yeah.
And it's a fairly decent number. And, it's not, it's not, even if you're only moving, $6 million a year and only half of it is your money, you're making a 30% return at a minimum on like a $3 million, you're making 900,000 and
Yeah.
like with almost no overhead. And so it can easily become a very profitable. I've chosen, and I teach my students to stay local because you have a
Mm,
chance to make a mistake by not knowing the underwriting. You run into trouble if you can't walk out and touch it. Like, oh, it's weird. I haven't heard from the flipper in 3 months. Let me drive by the property and like open the front door, and like having it local is, I think, one of the keys to success. I've seen some friends who've gone outside of their market. They're like, I'm going to lend over in another state. They have no idea. They don't know the rules.
okay.
They don't know the paperwork. They don't know any of it. And so I just encourage you to stay local. But you can absolutely, 15 to $20 million in a local market for a hard money lender is a very achievable number if you wanted to drive it like a business.
Huh. I love that. That's pretty cool because, and I like the way you're doing it because it's not like the traditional sense, like, oh, I've got money and then I go out there and do this. I feel like this is something that is teachable, doable, and very appealing to every party, out there. And especially, if you're staying local, you get to know those flippers. You can go and drive by. I think that was really great advice of staying local to your area. Um, and I love it. Like, this is not something that a lot of people talk about. This is different,
Yeah.
like in the lending world.
No one really teaches it. You can walk into like any room in America and your client, because your clients are free, because you can walk into any room in America and says, who wants money? And like every single person raises their hand. Now you can say, okay,
Right.
let's talk about terms. And people maybe start
Yeah.
to put their hand down. But if you specifically go into any RIA in any city in America, and what are there like, even in our mid-sized town, there's like 10 RIAs. And you can go into any of them and say, who wants to borrow my money and walk out of there with like 7 business cards.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you
That
don't have to pay for that client, or they just comes to you.
right, they're pursuing you versus
Yeah.
you pursuing them, which is nice. Because you've been on the other side, like you were saying. You have to dish out the marketing just to get the phone to ring, for us to be able to go out there and buy the house. So
Yeah.
I like
And so now people like send you deals that are already like they've already underwritten them. You can undo own underwriting. And especially if you're not a real estate investor, that might sound like difficult. But in reality, to get a pretty good comp is fairly simple nowadays.
yeah,
There's 4 or 5 really good algorithms, and then you just take the average and of the 4 algorithms. Is a pretty good way to tell you what the house is going to be like. And I used to buy houses doing something the same way.
right.
We underwrite them the same way,
That
and
was gonna be a question of mine. If you underwrite them the same, like if someone's in the real estate world, like you said, hey, I'm a flipper who's created a lot of capital. If I'm a flipper who's done a lot of capital, then you should have that underwriting skill.
yeah. Although let's be honest, most of them don't. Right? Most of them don't have that underwriting skill. Um, we try to teach it to them. We
Mm,
create our own little training for them. Because and that's only just because when you take people, because everybody wants you to fund deals, like you take all those cards and like 7 people, ask you to fund the deal. You have to have a process to figure out, okay, which one's the good one, which was the bad one. And, so we, just a little bit of training on like, oh, this is how you actually go and get the information goes a long way. And they're appreciative, by the way, and they become repeat clients. But, you can, I always tell people it's a fairly in a normal neighborhood, you can just take the average of like Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, and man, I forget the other one that we use sometimes, maybe Home.com. Then you just take those four and you do the average of those four, and you're going to come up with what is approximately the average of the home in that neighborhood. And so you go with that number. And when you're, because it's the average listing price in that neighborhood, you're going to renovate the home. So you're going to be above that price anyway. And it's a pretty safe and reliable. There's a secure way to underwrite that. And, local real estate agent that you might meet at a RIA probably run some comps for you as well.
okay. So you're
We teach
teaching them
a lot.
how to, yeah,
Yeah.
how to underwrite, how to
Yeah.
wrap the deal, how to structure it, and you're big on paperwork. So like I'm sure you've got all that in
Yes.
line for them as well too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's just do it like Wells Fargo does it. Like it's
Mm,
not super complicated. The checklist is pretty clear. The only skill set that a private money lender brings is the speed to make the decision and to deliver the money in a friendly, kind manner. Like those are really the only things you need to do to be successful.
I love that. I love the speed, and then underwriting the deal, and you're teaching them how to do something that not everyone is doing out there, and you become one of the sexiest people walking into a RIA. I've got money, I got it here to lend, and you've got it in a and I like that you're teaching people, because a lot of people say they're private lenders, but they've never been taught. They don't have a process to follow. It's like, whether they've been in the real estate game or not, it's just like, "Ooh, I've got money, maybe I could start lending it," and they lose their shirt, because they haven't been on the lending side of the table. So, sounds like you really help them understand the thought process of a lender, because that is a different thought process than being a flipper or a wholesaler or anything else.
And you have to, you can't rely on the professionals anymore. You can't rely on that attorney. Can't rely on the insurance company. Like, you have to know the insurance policy. You need to put your eyes on it and like know what to look for. Once you know what to look for, it's just a couple words, making sure that everybody's additionally insured with the correct entity and the right mortgagee. And like, it's not rocket science, but man, it's important to do, and everything works out great until it doesn't. And another
Right.
thing we try to teach is like, what is the morally correct thing to do as the lender? We see a lot of immoral things that go on sometimes. And, when people like stack their penalties and, you know, people don't understand the contracts they're signing. And we really, really try to teach the morality of it and doing the correct thing. And that, hey man, you're earning 30 to 50% return. That's good enough. And now do make
Yeah.
sure that you're protecting that client so that the client comes back.
Yeah. No, that's really good. I love that part of it. But it seems like the end goal for the people that you're working with is being able to lend the money to get those types of returns to work however hard they want to in it.
Yes. Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly
I love
right.
that.
And it's a skill set that you can do. It's a skill set that you can do forever. It's why all the gray
Yeah.
hairs that are at the beach are in paper. And
Yeah.
they've been telling us that since we started, right? Like
Right.
15 years ago.
Right.
And
Yeah, exactly.
now I got some
Then we
gray
get
hair.
smart later. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
That's good
yeah, that's
stuff.
it. Yeah, man.
Well, man, like I said, if you're listening to this, Rich is one of the highest integrity people I know. Like, he even brought that up as one of the things he teaches. Like, if you go through and become a lender and go through what he teaches and trains, like, he's even teaching you that side, which is why I have him on the show. I can't endorse him enough. Like, Rich, how do people find you for this training? Because if they have money that they want to do and become that lender and work however little or much they want to, like, you're one of the only people like I would just trust, especially in this lending world. So, like, how do they get a hold of you? Oh
Absolutely.
yeah.
The best way is to text me. Email's not great, and then
Okay.
calling is not great. Texting is the best. And that number is 804-601-0330. Just text me and say you heard, and you might be interested in learning more about a fractional wrap. And yeah, I'd be happy to talk to people.
Awesome. You heard, text his number. We'll have that number as well too in the show notes, but 804-601-0330, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Cool. So text him. I can attest. Do not call
Oh,
or email. So text him. He will answer your text message. I promise. He is great at texting back. But he also builds boundaries in his life too. He takes
yes.
that, which is great. But
My phone has
we're
not been on for years. My phone
yeah.
has not been on for years. It's true.
I
It's the best
remember.
thing
I
ever.
remember you going through that, and that. I know that was freedom to you too. One of the
Yeah,
big
really.
pieces. Well, cool. Well, this is how you get a hold of him. If you're interested in working with Rich, Rich doesn't have this team that you're going to be working with. Like, you work with Rich Lennon. He's teaching you how to do these wraps and making sure that you're doing it right, that you have the correct paperwork, that you know how to underwrite that deal. I cannot recommend him enough. Like I said, he's been a huge influence in my life, and he's still out there helping a ton of people, even when he doesn't have to. Like, he's going to be sitting on the beaches, like sipping the drinks. And he wants to help you in this area, which is right. I love this, because if you are starting to become especially if you're listening to this podcast, I would hope at some point, if you're listening to this podcast and you're actually doing deals, you start to stack cash. That's what the first method is all about, like getting profitability. So if you got the profitability, this is the guy. Like, that's the next step. We do have multiple of our clients that go through this stage where they went from going out of business and now they're like, what do I do with all this money? go talk to Rich
Yeah.
Lennon. It's like, go talk to Rich is one of my first things. So this is good stuff. Rich, I appreciate the knowledge that you imparted today and the importance and the key pieces of becoming a lender, and like how you teach those key pieces as well too, because I think if you don't know this stuff, you can get into so much trouble, hot water right away. If you try and do it and you don't have the proper setup or you don't have the proper mindset, I would definitely recommend Rich so you can learn and get the key fundamentals of what he's doing and earn crazy returns as well too while you're helping people, because like Rich said, it's integrity move. So it's making sure that it works for all the parties, and he's taking care of his lenders. It's like just the whole mindset there. So text him 804-601-0330. If you're out there saying, good gosh, I wish I had money like to be able to do this, go to simplecfo.com and schedule a call with our team so you can stack some cash. Like we helped Rich the very first year, find the money so you can actually do this stuff, right? So if you're making money but feeling broke, go to simplecfo.com. I want to help you not feel broke, and then you're going to reach out to Rich, and he's going to put your money to work and teach you how to put your money to work. So that's good stuff there. And Rich, thank you so much for coming on and being a friend of me all these years. So
yeah, thanks you, David. It's always a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
that's it for today's show. Be sure to subscribe, review, and share this episode. If you're serious about financial systems and keeping more of your profit, visit simplecfo.com to take your free discovery call today.